Great. All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Filecoin Core Devs number 36. Today is Thursday, the 10th of February, 2022, and we will jump in and get started. Today, I think we have a light agenda, just regular updates from all of the implementation teams, a check-in on preparations for the pending V16 network upgrade. And we'll also have a quick discussion about planning for the V16 network upgrade, as well as the two big FIPS that we're most interested in potentially incorporating, obviously one being FVM, the other one being the beneficiary address FIP that Stephen has been working on. So that being said, I do want to also note the reason we have a presentation today, which is a little bit different from our previous meeting formats, is because we're slowly working towards a new meeting format, which will offer us two simultaneous meetings back to back on Thursday to help accommodate international time zones a bit better. So in order to manage having two meetings, one of which is optional, so you do not have to join both, only the one that you prefer. We're going to have a little bit of a more formal meeting structure just to make sure that the same information is communicated across both of those meetings. And so again, this is not the most beautiful PowerPoint. I'm hoping to get some design help on it in the future. But if you have any feedback about the structure so far, do feel free to let me know. All right. So that being said, we already captured updates from teams. There were no significant security risks, large concerns, or discussion points that anyone brought up. But I did want to pause and give everyone an opportunity to sort of speak on behalf of their team if there's anything you'd like to add. Or again, any sort of walk-on topics that you think we ought to discuss. Maybe we start with the Lotus team. Anything from you?
The Lotus team has just been working on the OSNAP network upgrade that's coming on March the 1st. We're almost like close to cut the final RCs, just two more like user experience improvement that's like waiting to get in. But so far we're on track of the calibration upgrade like today happening in about 3 hours. So super excited. We're also testing a ton with our storage providers and community members in the OSNAP, like the SnapNet. We are seeing great results, so that's very exciting. We are also hosting a AMA about the whole deal making on Filecoin and the OSNAP upgrade next Thursday. I believe it was 3:30 PT time, so everyone is welcome to ask us anything. And along with the OSNAP upgrade releases, we're also working on Lotus release V16 which has a lot of improvement from the P2P resource manager graphing just to further improve deal making. But yeah, that's the update.
Great. Sounds like you guys are adequately busy. Any questions for the Lotus team? All right, let's jump over to Venus. You guys also have a lot of ongoing work. Stephen, any updates or anything you want to discuss with the group?
Yeah, we have listed some items here in this page. Yeah, basically, the high priority thing is to finalize the V15 start deal testing. Yeah, sorry, it's start deal. Yeah, I think it's almost done, and we're also working on the calibration and network testing on this, and we're confident we could meet the timeline of the network upgrading. And also the next thing is that we almost finalize the beneficial address FIP coding. We have a version, and we thanks Alex's comments, and we incorporated the comments into the code and have the all the modification, and we'll have another review before the merge into the speaks actors repo. And another big thing that about the Venus Mac 2.0, we're still working on this to support multiple multiple storage providers in one central service. It's almost done, but we need more testing to launch. We hope we can launch this when before the network 15 taking active. It's almost like this, and some other things about logistics and also about the coding perfection. Nothing more. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And it looks like Jennifer asked, should the code be merged before the FIP is when last call are accepted? So yes. So all of the any kind of the actual implementation of the FIP, right? This is sort of the only code component that should be going in after the FIP has already been accepted. Any sort of anything stemming from change motivation all the way down to the high level structure architecture of the change needs to be incorporated before we can do that sort of final period of community stewardship. So I have seen the work that Alex has put into reviewing the beneficiary address FIP, and also Stephen, the very diligent work you've done to respond to those questions, which is super great. You haven't had me bothering you because I think you've been really on top of making sure those changes go in. But I do think this FIP also seems to be very close to being finished as far as it can be for now. And again, that implementation question is sort of a separate one that we'll have. I think it makes sense to have when we decide during which network upgrade we can actually incorporate this into the network. Jennifer also asked, should we merge more code into Go Actor as we are transitioning to Rest Actor? That's a great question and not for me. Maybe we should jump down to the Forest team for their updates, and maybe they could address this question sort of at the end also.
Cool. Thank you, Caitlin. Yeah, on our side, it's mostly we're working on the V16 upgrade and trying to work together with the FVM upgrades that are coming in the network V16. I believe David and Guillaume are in a conversation with Rahul about some of the FVM stuff and also related to conformance test vectors. And I think they may have some input or some questions. David, Guillaume, if you had certain thoughts, I think feel free to share them, but that's kind of on our end at the moment.
Great. It sounds like we're okay for now, but obviously we'll have time for open discussion at the end if there were any last FVM questions that the team wanted to bring up. And Lee, I'm not sure, I know Elizabeth couldn't join us today, unfortunately, but didn't know if you wanted to touch on Jennifer's question into whether or not the Go Actor should also be updated in the most recent upgrade cycle. You may not have an opinion either.
Yeah, not probably me. Yeah, we gotta wait on Elizabeth for that one.
Yeah, Jennifer, it's not exactly, but almost a more existential question.
Yeah, I don't know if some of the engineers in our forest team have any opinion. I'll ask them to read them on chat, but it's more of an Elizabeth question.
Sure.
My main concern actually of merging new code unaccepted, unfinalized FIP into Go Actor Master. Yes, knock on the wood. However, if we find a critical bug in the Go spec actor and we have to do an emergency network upgrade, and if we have additional code that's in the master that will maybe complicate the integration and upgrade a little bit. So I'm wondering, would it be better for the beneficiary code go to its own branch for now, and then we can merge into master when the FIP is scheduled into a network upgrade?
Yeah, I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure on this. Yeah, I don't really have any thoughts, Jennifer, on this.
Yeah, I'm also not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing that we're trying to do, and I think we've been kind of successful so far, is using some of the bigger questions that we open up here to translate into discussion posts offline. Ayosh has recently opened one, Alex has opened a few. This might be sort of a good procedural question that we can also store in the repo for folks to provide feedback on. But it might be something for the Forest team and the Lotus team to sort of just discuss amongst themselves to find whatever that best practice is going to be. My instinct is that it really just depends on the amount of time it would take for you to sort of add this additional sort of feeling of resiliency into the actors. And it's really just a typical trade-off into like whether or not that's something you think is more imminently needed. All right. So if no other questions for the Forest team, let's jump over to Fuhan. Maxim, do you have any updates for the group?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. So we are currently working on testing the Fuhon node on Butterfly.net V15. I wanted to check if everything is okay with other implementations. Well, as far as I remember, the migration is supposed to happen today. I'm not sure what time. So I'm definitely sure that we will not be start the node at the block 0 of supporting V15 upgrade, but we'll definitely start testing tomorrow, as we already have received some money from the faucet, from the IUS basically, and we're going to start testing tomorrow. Though it's supposed to be working just fine as we tested it locally with both Lotus and Fuhon. Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention.
All right. Any questions for Fuhan? All right. So jumping over, I saw that Dudley was able to join us. Dudley, do you have any updates on network security for the group?
Sorry, my microphone was messed up there. No, not. I think I need to. I want to say to change safe. Could you ping Sigma Prime if you haven't already done that in that room that was made to get that final version of the audit out? Because I'm kind of lost as to which step we were on. I think you guys feel like everything's fixed, but I think Sigma Prime was saying that there was one thing that they wanted to fix for, something like that. But if we can just get the conversation going, thanks. That's it.
Great, thanks, Dudley. Any questions for Dudley? All right. For FIPS, so we have new tags in our discussion repo to help people sort through all of the open issues a little bit more easily. There's a few I still have left to add this afternoon, but those will be there. And I'm actively soliciting input on what types of technical tags we should be adding. We used to sort of denote things as actors versus implementations versus proofs. I'm not sure if those buckets or types of tags are as helpful anymore. Or will be once the FVM goes live. So if you have a good way of thinking about different priorities or technical components, do let me know so we can find some good ways to continue to organize all of this information. And the other thing is that sort of in auditing all of these, adding all of these tags, seeing all of the open conversations that are currently going on, there are a lot of FIPS. None of them are, most of them are not nearing a point where they're being actively stewarded or there's any sort of final technical work being conducted, except for Stephen's beneficiary address FIP. But we do have a lot of options for which we prioritize in future upgrades. And so I think this is going to be an ongoing discussion we have over time. However, I think more imminently what we need to discuss is planning for the V16 upgrade. There are sort of two separate sort of questions, open questions that I think we ought to discuss. The first is, and this is something Ayosh had also raised in one of those discussion threads last week, is how big ought a network upgrade to be? We already know that the FVM FIPS will be incorporated in V16, but is it either feasible from a work side or feasible from a security and sort of network resiliency side to incorporate additional FIPS on top of this? And the other question is, what timeline can we accept and work with in order to get the FVM implemented in the network on schedule? So I think to talk about the scheduling question first, I think that comes before a question of additional FIPS. Raul had originally timelined for the FVM to go live around March 31st. And if we confirm by next Thursday that we will be upgrading on a set day, that will put us exactly 6 weeks out from March 31st. Which it's my understanding is the absolute minimum threshold needed between different upgrades, so long as we have that timeline confirmed. I want to see sort of what initial thoughts or reactions you have to the idea of upgrading again at the end of March.
Are we talking about testnets?
We're talking about a mainnet upgrade. So we would have to do sort of parallel work to finalize the V15 upgrade at the same time that we begin to test for V16.
Yeah. So in terms of testnets, I just wanted to provide a little bit of information here. The strategy is going to be to deploy ButterflyNet pretty much imminently now that with at least Lotus, and I think that far is going to probably also join ButterflyNet. We'll probably have it running on ButterflyNet for a long time, at least 1 week, 2 weeks, and then it will continue running there. Potentially within 2 weeks from now, we could be looking at deploying on CalibrationNet. That's kind of like what we're thinking right now. I think the still uncertain parts here is the gas model changes themselves, because we still need to submit a FIP for those, and we need to like analyze them deeply and submit a FIP for those once we have a proposal.
Yeah. Raul, do you understand, or do you have a good understanding right now of when you expect to either have the full FIP or begin working on a FIP for the gas model changes?
Yeah, it's probably, so now that we've got the FEM integrated into Lotus and mainnet is syncing, now this is the moment where we start really collecting statistics in terms of execution, execution traces and so on. And I think potentially 2 weeks from now, that FIP could come. So I know it makes the timeline, the initially proposed timeline, a little bit challenging. We do, I think at this point it's fair to say that we do there might be a possibility for us. It could be okay to delay the network upgrade that we initially scheduled or that we initially proposed for March the 31st to 2 weeks from then. So maybe like mid-April.
Okay.
I would carefully say it's a really tight timeline. But I have to say, I have to disclose that I'm fairly new to Filecoin, and also I'm not in a full picture how involved this network upgrade is. But 6 to 8 weeks is a lot. I would argue a lot. It's pretty tight on our end.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Afri. Just a heads up for everybody, Afri is with Forest with us. Yeah, definitely seems tight on us. And I think like some of the things that we have been working with the FPM, maybe David, if you could share the challenges that you have been facing, that would help the rest of the teams as well on discussing this timeline. Is David here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't feel I have a lot of input on the timeline, but like I would love to see like a greater shared testing infrastructure. So the like the tests that are available for everyone, they often don't get updated for months, and that has come to bite us a few times.
So you're talking specifically about the test vectors, or
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, the test vectors for the FVM, there's a specific, you probably saw it, but there's a specific repo for FVM test vectors because we support it only after V6 and onwards with the FVM. So that's one thing. Those test vectors are, I think, were generated. So one part of those were generated from specs actors, and yeah, they are known to contain some issues, as we discussed in a Slack thread there, and we need to figure out the right mechanism so that test vectors are always correct. The ones that are committed on the repos are always correct. They need to be a golden truth always. So that's one thing. And then the other test vectors there's another series of test vectors that were extracted from mainnet. And these are test vectors that were extracted with Lotus, with the old VM, and they're expected to work with the FVM, and they must pass, and they are passing. So that's when it comes to test vectors. I think for shared testing infrastructure, ButterflyNet would probably be the right tool to use there. So having Forest and Lotus both running the FVM, operating ButterflyNet.
And yeah, can I have a question about this FVM upgrading here? Yeah, could we do some grid upgrading? Yeah, I mean that we keep, for example, V15 no change, but we have FVM integrated and replace some nodes, and no more FIPs adding in this upgrading. We just have some node to run the FVM, and which is compatible with the V15, and do some testing for some time, for example, for 1 or 2 months, which means we will have some nodes running the new code and some nodes running the old code.
So this is possible. So this was always part of the plan. This is what we're calling Canary Tests. So basically, having Filecoin nodes could be in our case, we've been doing it with Lotus, but it could be any other client running and syncing mainnet with the FVM. Now this gives you limited coverage because it would be more useful and better. It would give you better yield and a better bang for the buck to actually go and synchronize the historical chain, right? Because the information that you're getting from keeping up with mainnet in terms of testing is the same as it's lower throughput than actually syncing the whole chain. So yeah, it's a useful experiment to conduct, but in terms of testing coverage and confidence, I think syncing a historical chain trumps Canary Tests.
Yeah. Okay. I think what I mean is that we need to have the features, features fixed for some time. To sync in the main chain for some time. Yeah, it's quite okay. It will still need to keep it running for some time.
So I think Stephen, I heard you mentioned you mentioned running mainnet, as Ross said, Canary node at least for 1 to 2 months. I'm wondering why do you think 1 to 2 months makes sense, and what do you think is the minimum time that we should be running the code in mainnet before we actually perform the upgrade?
I'm not so sure. Yeah. Okay, because if we can sync the mainnet from the beginning to the latest, it might be okay. Might be yeah, but syncing is one thing. Yeah, perhaps 1 month will be enough. Yeah, because yeah, if you can sync the whole mainnet mainnet, and you could run for some time, and for the new messages and the block mining, anything about this, it could be promising, I would think.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring everybody's attention to a second FIP that I submitted a few days ago. That's the link. So this is the FIP that it's still in draft, but this is it would be great if you guys could take a look and review it and add your comments there. This is the one that specifies the atomic switch procedure. So basically, what would happen at the atomic switch epoch, in terms of the migration, in terms of the activation of the VM, and a few other things. So this is kind of like specifies that particular event. So in general, I'm gathering kind of like a sentiment that folks think that 6 weeks from next Thursday, so that would be 7 weeks from today, people feel that this is quite tight for a timeline. Right. Okay. What would be what is missing kind of like in your in the information that you have to be able to like give a potential alternative timeline here? Or are we able to like say 8 weeks, or like what can we do from the FEM team to provide a little bit more clarity here on what would, so that implementers team can think about alternative timelines here?
Yeah, okay. Don't quote me on this one because I'm, not very on the technical side, but I think, step by step, probably a more clarity on, okay, this is the FIP, these are the implementations, these are the tests that needs to be run, these are the test vectors, like more like a, I don't know, like a guideline. If we have a much more clarity of the guideline, then like, let's say Forest can evaluate that, Venus team can do it, and same with Puhan, and then I think we can come to a much more consensus. Okay, it might take like 6 weeks for us to do that, 8 weeks for us to do that, and especially also we are still in the middle of the network V15 at the point, and we're trying to get to a point. Okay, so maybe we're trying to take things from the network V16 upgrade with the FEM as well as putting it together at the moment. So I think that would really help from the FEM team more clarity and a basic step-by-step guideline on what needs to be done.
Okay. Do we want? What do other implementers think? Would that be useful? And I don't think we've heard from Maxim on this topic either.
Well, as I mentioned, on a couple of core devs previously, it doesn't seem like it will be a dramatic change for us, as we'll have to move from one FFI to another FFI. So as we are currently using the Go actors migrated from the Go, it seems to be like it's will be less headache for us than for anybody else.
Okay, and you'd be using the FVM. So the FFIs that you're using, so you're using specs actors over FFI, but the VM that Fullhorn is running is a natively implemented VM?
Partially. So we have, well, basically everything, the context is implemented on the C++, definitely. We have also, at some point we have developed several actors by themselves, and we are currently like bumping their versions from like migration to migration. But it's relatively easy to get rid of everything of our own and to move to the FEM, though we haven't assessed the whole scope for the migration yet. We have touched it as soon as it was made available by you, I think 2 weeks ago, and at this point it seemed to be relatively easy. To the extent that it is doable by March 31. That's what I meant.
So it sounds like all of the sort of spec specific or actor specific updates are going to be particular to teams, of course, and they'll already have insight on what that upgrade sort of looks like. But it's this broader sort of workflow with the different testing requirements, et cetera, that's still a little fuzzy. Raul, is there something I could follow up with on your team, perhaps? Also happy to work with you if you have the time, so that we could get that sort of timeline or workflow available, and we can open up another discussion thread so that teams can sort of look at it offline, check back with their PMs or whoever they need to talk to, and provide some sort of guidance or input on what they think is sort of an ideal timeline for them.
Yeah, I already started putting something like this together. I'm gonna evolve this into a public testing plan for this particular upgrade, and I think we can take it from there. I think that will give teams enough information to evaluate what needs to be done, and potentially like I'll accompany that with some notes on for specific implementations on like how the integration can how we see the integration happening, and then we can hopefully that will help. That will give teams enough information so that we can all together potentially even have a session dedicated to this discussion next week, prior to the next core devs meeting. So that way we can kind of come quicker to an alignment here. Would that help?
I think that's great. Logistical note, I'm going to be at a conference all next week, so I won't be available, but I'm happy to help with whatever kind of scheduling you may need or getting emails, et cetera, so we can talk offline too. And this afternoon, I'll set up sort of just a reference point with links to the 2 current FBM FIPS and a placeholder for the 3rd. And this is also where we can add in the timeline information once we have it, just so there's a public place for implementers to go and reference when asking questions about the FBM implementation process, et cetera. And we can kind of sort of track needs over time.
Yeah, just wanted to say, yeah, Raul, that sounds pretty good. Let's schedule a call. You can just send me the invite and I can invite the necessary people, but let's do it like mid or late next week, because Elizabeth is off till next Tuesday and I think she needs to be in this discussion as well. But I think this will really help for us as a whole, and we can just have this discussion. Sounds good.
Cool.
If that's all about FVM solver, I'm wondering, does that mean for the network V16, we are only committed to the FVM FIP at the moment?
So great question. This is sort of the other half of this conversation is, I think, yes, this is the only one we've discussed with certainty. But I think there's a lot of interest generally and also incorporating Stephen's beneficiary address FIP as well. And so the open question here is perhaps, Stephen, you could provide a little bit more detail. I know we've discussed sort of the context of change around the FIP, but what implementation might look like. And we can discuss whether or not it'd be feasible to also include in V16.
Yeah, okay. I would say from the process point of view, because FM is a very big thing, I would like to separate the 2 things. One is about FVM. Another is network version 16. I would like to once we adopt FVM, we do better to keep network version no change. So if, for example, if we have the FM feature in the system, we could call it also the version network version 15, because everything is like that. There is no change. And we have another upgrading for the V16 to have any other FIPS. Is that possible, or we have to have a mandatory network version for the FM, or we could keep the version. We have right now, or we have next time.
So to help answer your question, it looks like in the chat there's preference to not upgrade at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
I would like, I have a opinion on this. If we really want to upgrade mainnet in 6 weeks, then we should by now freeze the version so that all teams can focus on implementing it. Otherwise, it's not even tight, but also uncertain if teams can implement it. But I'm not entirely sure if I understand the scope of the upgrade, but 6 weeks is already really tight. And if we are still discussing what's going into the upgrades, then I would say 6 weeks are kind of unrealistic.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we'll have an ongoing conversation about this timeline, and it sounds like we will push it out a little bit from 6 weeks. It will still be very tight, and it doesn't change the size of the upgrade that's going in.
Yeah, I feel like understood, like we will be pushing, like, the 6 week might be like extended. However, if we do, because of the extension, we add new FIP into that will extend the like a waiting period like even longer. So I agree with Chinsafe here is let's finalize the FIP that we are aimed to, accept and finalize in network V16. And then we can give you a better timeline, like upgrade timeline estimation in the next call after understanding the whole working scope. Basically, what I'm suggesting is like if we are considering other FIPs that will impacting our ETA as well.
Yeah, that's fine. I think it makes sense. I think everyone is sort of leaning towards not including it. And the reason for asking is just because I know Stephen's done a lot of work on this, but also I think Alex is really interested in seeing this FIP implemented. So it's one perspective, but we don't want anyone overextending themselves or sort of cutting corners in order to sort of hit a requirement that isn't necessary to be time bound right away. So I think we should, Stephen, I've continued to review the changes you put into the beneficiary address step, and we can work towards that last call status separate from this upgrade discussion. We can revisit this in our call in 2 weeks, meeting 37, but it sounds like most likely this will be the headlining FIP perhaps for network V17.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
No problem.
Just wanted to add something, particularly in this situation, there's some elegance and cleanliness in having a change that switches the entire execution layer to not be accompanied by logical changes within the programs that execution layer is running. So that way you can just have a change in infrastructure and no change in business logic, so to speak, right? This is like also like one of those principal things that would be very nice to be able to do, and it seems like we're all in agreement here.
Yeah. Thanks for stating it so simply. I think you're right.
Yeah. Okay. I think my question is that if we just change the execution layer, we will really have another network version. We just keep the network version 15, right? We don't need to have another network version.
From the perspective of decision making and rules to apply from inside actors based on network versions, there are no changes, but still I think it's important. Well, actually there will be network versions, because there will be a change, because first of all, the CIDs of this is specified in the second FIP, but the CIDs of the code CIDs of all actors in the state tree are going to change to content address CIDs from their synthetic CIDs right now. So that would be one thing. Second, and that is going to be noticed by the network. So it's not just a change in the runtime, but it's actually a change in the state of the network as well. And also this is going to be accompanied by gas changes. So yeah, so definitely a network version bump is definitely important to do.
Okay, yeah, okay, and agree. Yeah, if we need to do the gas calculation changes, yeah, you must have another version. Okay, yeah, and understood.
Right. So it seems like we've sort of gotten to a point of understanding on both of these topics for now. And again, I'll point everyone to all of the follow-up materials we've discussed so that you can keep track of the conversation. Are there any additional thoughts, points to be made, or issues anyone wants to raise related to the FVM or the version 16 upgrade?
Can we
Yeah, I
start?
had sorry, Jennifer.
Can we
You
start
want-
a discussion? It's not important, but can we start a discussion to talk about the code name for the next upgrade?
Absolutely, yeah, we can.
Yeah, I had one thought, sorry, before moving that. I think, Caitlin, this is a really good question that you have here. How large should network upgrades be? I know all FIPs are not created equal, but if we want to, let's say, maintain some consistency in every network upgrade, like 6 weeks or 8 weeks, I think it's kind of good to gauge how much, each FIP, how large or small is, and then we can kind of group them together and move towards each of the upgrades consistently. So just wanted to comment on that. Yeah, that's about it. We can discuss the name.
Thanks. So yeah, this is something we've talked about before, and Ayosh sort of brought it up more formally and kind of outlined his sort of understanding and preference. What we're going to do, like we have done with, what we did with 15, is we'll schedule a retro for afterwards so that we can just provide feedback. If anyone has any big issues, you can air them at that time. We've obviously previously discussed, like, should we have scheduled network upgrades so we can anticipate in advance when these are going to be? Should we remain responsive and sort of schedule them in this ad hoc way? And I think perhaps a better question, since everyone has different preferences, is this question of like upgrade size and what is reasonable to ask of teams. So I wish I had a silver bullet or great best practice for you, and I don't. But I think it's, again, one of those things that we'll continue to talk about over time. All right. So we've reached the end of our agenda. We've also reached almost the end of the meeting time. Any last issues, comments, or questions for anyone? All right. Well, Raul, thanks again so much for joining us. I think this is the third meeting in the row that you've been able to come and provide a lot of really great help. So we do appreciate it. Also, to the two folks who recently joined the ChainSafe team, we are glad to have you and hope to see you in 2 weeks again. As always, lots of follow-up materials. So I'll be pinging everyone on Slack later today. And as a reminder, I'll also be out for the next 2 weeks at a conference. So if you need me urgently, I may be a little slow to respond. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.